What's going on, guys? Dan Watson, Learning Cameras, and I've got the Tamron 28mm to 75mm F2.8 lens, and I'm here in Washington, D.C., which is really such a good place to check this out because, I mean, look at this. This is a very small, compact, all-around lens. It's a perfect focal length for taking to a place like this, and at f2.8 aperture, you're getting a little bit better than what you can on most other walk-around lenses. So I really wanted to give this one a try, see how it works. So check out this review, and we'll see what we got. Alright, so now that I'm back, I will say that things have probably changed a little bit on that. I mean, when I was first there, I introduced this as kind of an all-around shooter. I mean, it was great for DC, where I'm going to be vacationing and traveling. This is an upgrade from a kit lens, but I still never posed it as possibly an alternative to some of the nicer, more professional lenses out there. I have been using this, checked out those images since I got back, and I will say that I have no problem keeping this on my camera. I mean, I'm shooting with 24-70 G Master f2.8 lenses, but this was living on my camera for a long time. In fact, I just shot some video for a wedding. This was my go-to lens on my camera with a gimbal, and that's because it's so light and small that the gimbal was able to handle it no problem, and I was able to handle it no problem, which was really nice. So I do think that this is a lens that has so much more value than maybe even what I had given it in the beginning. So please like and subscribe again, check out in the comments below, and let me know what you think about this lens, any questions that you have for me. That's where you're gonna find out, that's where you can ask those. So let's talk build quality, because this is all about compromises. I mean, Tamron was clearly not shooting for making this the ultimate lens, but for making this a smaller, lighter alternative and even more inexpensive alternative to some of the other Sony lenses. And essentially, that's what so much of us have been wishing for, is something that fitted these better, smaller body styles, mirrorless cameras a little bit better, and that's what we have in this lens. Now that's going to mean that it's more of a plastic build, and it's much smaller and lighter at just 15 ounces. However, that does mean that we're dealing with plastics, and the quality is really not going to impress anyone. Also, I do find that the focus ring is actually very smooth. It is not linear, but it is very smooth, and the zoom ring is a little bit less so. I would have liked something a little bit better. However, it's not a problem at all. It's going to be an upgrade from your kit lenses. It's not going to compete build quality wise with some of your other like G Master lenses or high-end pro lenses out there. Another thing was probably a cost-saving measure is that there's no buttons, dials, switches at all on this lens. Now, if I had to get something up, that would probably be it. I don't use those that often. However, if I'm shooting manual focus like for video, if you turn off your camera and turn it back on, even if you were on manual focus, it will turn that focus back on. So having a hard switch right here was always nice, because I knew that when the camera would turn off and it would turn back on, I would make sure that everything was still in manual focus no matter what. Now the big question is autofocus, because this is the first non-Sony native lens for this that actually feels like it's made for these mirrorless cameras. Now I have lenses like this, which is a Sigma 85mm 1.4 for Sony E mount, but this is really the Canon version with an adapter built in. It's just not what I would call a native lens. Just because it has the mount doesn't mean it was created for this mirrorless camera. So how was the performance? I would say it was pretty close to amazing. I mean, I had no issues with this whatsoever. It held up with just about everything I threw on it. I didn't feel like I was ever hindered by the lens performance on this. There were a couple of times it seemed to hunt a little bit longer or take a little bit delay that I didn't feel like I was used to seeing as often on some of my nicer like 24-70 2.8 G Master lenses, but nothing that really hampered me at all, and that was why it is still living on my camera. I do feel confident this is going to be a good setup for you. It's not the fastest lens out there when it comes to autofocus performance, but it's certainly fast enough for just about anything you would need. When it comes to straight up image quality, I was actually really impressed with this thing. At f2.8, things are super sharp as you would ever want them. Throw it up to f4 or 5.6, things get a little bit better, especially in the corners, but honestly, even at f2.8, I had no problem using this, especially in the center. In a couple flare tests, I'm not going to call it my favorite lens, but I thought I handled it pretty well. My photos were still very usable. I like a little bit of flare in my images, so I found that this was actually really good for me. Now you'll definitely notice some vignetting at f2.8. At f4 and 5.6 it pretty much ends up being nothing. I don't mind vignetting, you can clean it up in post, but it is there if that matters to you. Bokeh as well. Again, it's not my favorite lens in the world, but I found it very good, even zoomed in. It's a little strong for my taste. I'd like it to be a bit softer, but overall it's very good. Considering the sharpness of the lens, the price of this lens, I don't think you'll have an issue at all. Now the big question is who should buy this thing? And I'm going to tell you that just about everybody. I mean, if you are looking for an alternative to the kit lens or an upgrade to a kit lens for Sony cameras, this is going to be an amazing option. If you're shooting with an A6300 or A6500, this is going to be a better option. If you're shooting with a 24-70 f4 OSS or looking at that lens by Sony, that's the same price and it does give you stabilization in it. But this is going to be a better option. I mean, I prefer having an f2.8 aperture for just about everything. We do have stabilization built into the body on most of these cameras, and so for me, this is going to be a better option. In fact, the only one who might want to ignore this is going to be professionals who demand the best quality and the best build quality in the market today. You're going to be taking that lens into environments that this is just not made for, and really it was never intended to go up against lenses like that. It's kind of crazy that we're getting quality that's even close to be able to be used for something like that. So those lenses are about $2,300 and they're that price for a reason. For the most part, they're still a little bit overpriced, but they're that way for a reason. There's no question that this is going to be an amazingly popular lens. I mean, there's just so many uses for it. The price is right, the build quality is there, and so many of the most important things are going to be there on this lens. So let me know in the comments below if you're going to be picking one of these up. I hope you like and subscribe to this channel. We got new videos like this and some really cool tutorials coming out and just came out now, so please check those out. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.